This is going to sound slightly weird, but in the last few years, tiny bubbles of fat have saved millions of lives, possibly even yours or someone you know. And these nanoscopic bubbles have only just got started. If they fulfill their promise, they could save millions, maybe even billions more. If you had one of the mRNA coronavirus vaccines, Pfizer, BioNTech or Moderna, you can thank these tiny fatty spheres for your protection from COVID. Even though we call them mRNA vaccines, that overlooks the equally, possibly even more important component that you hear far less about: the envelope that we wrapped the otherwise fragile mRNA inside. And in collaboration with the science and technology company Merck, I'd like to tell you about these tiny fatty spheres, and how, having saved millions of people from COVID, they could help us treat everything from cancer to allergies, and perhaps even the aging process itself. More technically, these fatty bubbles are called lipid nanoparticles, which sounds complicated, but it's quite a simple idea. Lipid is just the biochemical name for fat-like molecules, and they're called nanoparticles because they're very, very small, usually less than 100 nanometers in size, small enough to fit tens of millions of them onto this dot. Can you even see this dot? Lipid nanoparticles can act as a kind of microscopic postal service, packaging everything from drugs to the tools to repair genes and delivering them safely to where they're needed in the body. So let's take a look at the 10 most amazing things about these nanobubbles of fat and the messages that they can carry.
In at number 10, how lipid nanoparticles are made.
The first amazing thing about them is how they're made. They automatically build themselves in a process known as self-assembly. You just need to find the right mixture. First, obviously, whatever you want to put inside, we'll get to that in a second, plus a few different kinds of lipids, get the conditions just right, and bam, nanoparticles. Well, this one's not exactly nano, but let's take a look inside. You can see its cargo, mRNA, one type of lipid to give the whole particle structure, another lipid to package the mRNA safely, a so-called PEG lipid, which helps protect the particle, and a lipid you might have heard of called cholesterol, which makes the whole thing more stable. The end result is this hairy ball of lipids, with its cargo carefully parcelled up inside. Which brings us to
Number 9. They protect their cargo.
When you put a drug into the body, it's immediately recognised as a foreign molecule, and your body starts to break it down. And it's even worse with the RNA that we use in mRNA vaccines. Our body really isn't a fan of RNA just floating around, because it might mean that you've been infected with an RNA virus, for example, which means our immune system clears up free-floating RNA ASAP. Choose the right combination of lipids, though, like the PEG lipids that we just saw, and they'll disguise the mRNA from the body's lookouts, which means you need far less of the active ingredient to have the same effect. These ninja nanoparticles are sometimes known as stealth liposomes.
Straight to 8, they make sure the package gets delivered.
Unlike some human couriers, lipid nanoparticles don't just dump the parcel on the doorstep to get stolen or rained on. Having protected their contents on the journey to a cell, they make sure it gets inside once it arrives. Our cells are held together by a protective membrane that only lets certain things in and out, and massive suspicious-looking molecules like drugs or RNA are not on the guest list. However, our cell membranes are also made of lipids, so they do a kind of a lipid club secret handshake with a nanoparticle to open up a portal through the cell wall and allow it inside. Getting all of these steps just right has taken decades. We need to produce nanoparticles that self-assemble effectively, that don't attract the attention of the immune system, that disrupt the cell membrane enough to break and enter, but not so much as to break the whole cell, and that are strong enough to survive the journey, but weak enough under the right conditions to burst open and unload their cargo on arrival. If you thought Goldilocks was fussy, lipid nanoparticle chemistry is something else. And scientists have had to try thousands of different mixtures of lipids to get them into all of these Goldilocks zones at once.
Number 7. New vaccines.
Lipid nanoparticles are great for making vaccines because... Okay, we probably are going to have to talk about how great mRNA is. The M in mRNA stands for messenger, and it's how our DNA tells our cells what proteins to produce. And proteins are nature's nanobots. They're the molecules that do almost everything in all forms of life, from the maybe 100,000 proteins that keep our bodies running smoothly, to just 11 proteins in a flu virus that allow it to self-replicate and make us sick. So when a lipid nanoparticle delivers some mRNA, it's like slipping an extra item into our cell's protein manufacture to-do list, and the cells will obligingly make whatever protein the instructions are for. In vaccines, these are proteins for whatever you want to teach the immune system to fight. In the case of COVID, it was the spike protein on the outside of the virus. And because it's very easy to just change the sequence of mRNA to anything you like, there are loads more ideas in the pipeline. There are mRNA vaccines in development for malaria, Zika virus, and HIV, diseases that we've struggled to develop vaccines for in the past, but mRNA could help us crack. There are also vaccines in the works that protect against multiple diseases at once, simply by containing a mixture of different types of RNA. There's even the idea of a universal flu vaccine, one containing 20 different types of RNA designed to cover all families of the flu virus, and it managed to protect mice and ferrets against a whole range of different flu viruses when it was tested. And don't forget the lipid nanoparticles. It's thought one reason that some people fell ill after their COVID jab was their immune system's reaction to the lipids. So scientists are working on new formulations that aggravate the immune system less. But there's another Goldilocks zone here. Annoying the immune system just a little bit can improve the response to a vaccine by convincing your body that this fake infection is the real deal. So if we can get lipids that irritate the immune system a little bit without making it full-on angry, optimized nanoparticles could allow us to get vaccines with better protection and reduced side effects.
6. Treating cancer.
Some of the first lipid nanoparticles were made to transport cancer drugs, and some of these are still in use today. They protect the drugs from your body so they last longer, or in something like chemotherapy where the drugs can have serious side effects, they can also protect your body from the drugs by only delivering them to where they're needed, clobbering cancer cells with reduced side effects on the rest of you. There are also efforts to treat cancer with an mRNA vaccine. Unlike a virus, where the same germs can infect all of us, every patient's cancer is unique. But the flexibility of mRNA means it's possible to cook up a collection of custom-coded sequences specifically tailored to the mutations found in a patient's cancer cells. This would then teach our immune system to clear up the cells carrying those mutations, hopefully meaning that our body's own defences could destroy the tumour, while leaving the rest of the cells of our body, which don't carry the mutations, well alone. Early trials have shown that this can work with skin cancer, so there's a lot of excitement about using these vaccines to treat other types of cancer too.
Number 5. Treating allergies.
As well as gearing up the immune system to fight and take down infections or cancer, we may also be able to use nanoparticles and mRNA to get it to chill out. Allergies are caused when our immune system learns to recognise something harmless, from pollen to peanuts, as a deadly threat that must be eradicated. And there's a surprising treatment. It's called oral immunotherapy, and that name is misleadingly complicated. It involves eating tiny amounts of, say, peanut, and gradually increasing the dose until the body realises that peanuts aren't actually its worst enemy. Obviously, don't try this at home. But what if, rather than giving patients peanuts or peanut protein powder, we can encode peanut protein in mRNA and get our body's own cells to produce it in precisely controlled quantities? And this is where the fatty bubbles could come to the rescue. By decorating lipid nanoparticles with particular molecules, we can effectively put an address label onto the package and target them specifically to the cells whose jobs it is to calm the immune system, reducing the risk of dangerous side effects.
In at 4. Turning genes off.
The first approved treatment made with lipid nanoparticles with RNA inside actually didn't use mRNA. It used another flavour of RNA, called siRNA, or silencing RNA. And the job of silencing RNA is pretty different. Instead of causing a protein to be made, silencing RNA does the exact opposite and stops it being produced. The first treatment was for people with a disease called transthyretin, or TTR amyloidosis, whose cells produce a dangerous form of this protein, TTR, that accumulates in their bodies and causes pain, muscle weakness, and eventually fatal kidney and heart problems. But by stopping the production of the protein, you can substantially reduce the problems with this disease. And there are loads of other proteins we might want to slow or stop the manufacture of. So by silencing them with RNA carried by nanoparticles, we have an incredibly precise way to do it, and to cure otherwise fatal diseases.
Number 3. Gene therapy.
Both mRNA and siRNA are temporary treatments. Eventually, the RNA gets broken down and they stop working. But what if we decide we want to turn off a gene permanently, or change it, or add a new function entirely? Well, we can also package mRNA with instructions to edit or repair genes. For example, including mRNA for the DNA snipping CRISPR enzyme, we can get our cells to build the tools to edit their own genetic code. One idea in clinical trials is to permanently disable a gene called PCSK9, which affects cholesterol levels in the blood. We already know that inhibiting this gene with siRNA can dramatically reduce cholesterol levels and therefore reduce the risk of heart attack and stroke. And it's a huge improvement for patients who, rather than taking a tablet like a statin every single day, just have to go for a lipid nanoparticle injection once every 6 months or so. But what if we could give people with high cholesterol a one-and-done treatment, turning off this gene permanently? The result would be lower cholesterol for your whole life, delivered, ironically, by tiny bubbles made of fat.
2. Lipid nanoparticles to treat aging.
My personal favourite ideas for lipid nanoparticles and RNA are, of course, treatments that could slow down the ageing process and help to keep us healthier for longer. And we've got loads of ideas. First, gene therapy. Turning off PCSK9 is arguably slowing down the ageing of our blood vessels, and I talked in a previous video about how editing the ApoE gene could reduce some people's risk of dementia. But there are loads of potential longevity genes. Could we use lipid nanoparticles to give all of us DNA that looks a bit more like that of people who live to 100? And it's not just gene therapy. One mRNA vaccine being tested targets CMV, or cytomegalovirus, a virus which, once it infects you, sticks around for the rest of your life, basically accelerating the ageing of the immune system. Vaccine to slow the ageing process, anyone?
And finally, the number one cool thing about lipid nanoparticles.
I think the most exciting thing about these tiny fatty bubbles might be the treatments that we haven't even thought of yet. We may one day be able to send any drug, any protein, or any sequence of RNA to any cell in the body, allowing our own cells to manufacture things to keep them healthy, or stop manufacturing things that are causing disease, or just reprogram our biology in ways that I can't even describe yet. We could come up with vaccines to teach our immune system to fight things beyond infections and cancers and allergies, perhaps getting them to chase down misfolded proteins associated with diseases like Alzheimer's, or the aged senescent cells which accumulate in our bodies as we get older and seem to accelerate the aging process. Given an easily modifiable toolkit that can do almost anything a scientist or doctor can dream of, these fatty bubbles could do far more than save us from COVID. Lipid nanoparticles may be tiny, but I'm prepared to bet that their impact will be huge. I'd like to thank Merck, both for sponsoring this video and for manufacturing the lipids used in these incredible nanoparticles. Saying they self-assemble makes it sound like you just stick them in a test tube and out come fully formed fat bubbles, but it's thanks to the hard work of scientists and engineers that this works safely every time. Merck's chemists have been hard at work, finding the perfect fats to make millions of nanoparticles and transport mRNA safely to my cells, and keep me safe from COVID. And I hope many more times in the future for more vaccines, and maybe much, much more. Find out more about Merck and some more amazing facts about lipid nanoparticles at the links in the description.